Hello, everyone, and happy Cinco de Mayo. The Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour returns after a week off with a mega catching up to do this week. I'm your co-host Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm always joined by Ed Carbajal, and we are brought to you by AllAccessMMA.com. Check out AllAccessMMA.com for MMA news and stories. Ed, I survived. It was a hell of a run, but back in town and happy to be home.
Yeah, UFC 260-01. I mean, you were there for the very first event back, and fans back, and as the self-proclaimed super fan, I mean that must have been something worthwhile, worth talking about. I mean, as I'm sure folks want to know, especially with the Texas event coming up, like just kind of talk about your experience with going there as a fan with the 262. Is not this weekend, the following weekend. So what should they expect outside of a free mask that you probably don't have to use?
So a lot of it. I mean, well, first of all, Jacksonville. There's not a lot going on in that town. I think there'll probably be more going on in the Houston area. Jacksonville, nice looking town, a lot of potential, but just not a lot of action. So definitely wasn't like a New York City or a Las Vegas feel per se. But once you got to the event, you had to fill out an app. I don't know if Houston will be doing it, but I had to fill out a Clear. It's called the Clear app.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's just a quick little couple medical questions, and then they looked at you. You got a green thumbs up basically on the app, and once you showed that to an usher, you were allowed to go in. So
like an app on your phone.
Yeah, I downloaded app. I had it downloaded because the Lakers, the NBA uses it, so I was having to use it for the Laker Magic game anyway. And then the UFC announced 48 hours prior that they were going to also follow that protocol. So made it easy. I mean, it's a simple. Have you felt sick? Have you been around anybody sick?
Sorry, I know that's a stupid question for some people, but I just because like I use in my going abouts around here in Jersey, we call an application like an actual paper application an app too.
Gotcha.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear as to
they had a mobile app, and then I think if you had problems with that, they had like kiosks where you could go and basically fill it out and do whatever you needed to do to get into the arena. So I don't think that was a problem for anybody. It was super easy to do for me and the people in my group. I don't recall if I had to wear a mask walking in the doors. I don't believe I did.
Temperature check or anything, or just kind of
no temperature check. No, walk through metal detectors. Again, once you filled out that app with those questionnaire, they really weren't on you. They handed out masks at the door.
Is it the ones from that press release with the logo on it?
Yeah, I should have grabbed it to show you, but yeah, it just has the logo on one side and then some kind of sponsor on the other side.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, and they're like kid sizes, so it doesn't even fit comfortably. But regardless, and full disclosure, I am fully vaccinated for anybody listening to this for the first time. So I did go into this,
ladies,
somewhat prepared, and not just going into it completely blind and ignorant to the fact that there was going to be a massive crowd. So had great seats, as good of seats as I've ever paid for a UFC pay-per-view. Didn't have to sneak up into anything. Didn't have to do any of my arena magic to get better seats. Had really good quality seats, which made for being able to take cool photos and being pretty up close and personal with some of the action, which for the majority of the card was great, and for about another 10-minute period wasn't so great to be real close to what was going on in the ring.
You're referring to the Chris Weidman break, right?
Yeah. Chris Weidman suffered a massive broken leg,
which everybody knows about by now.
Everybody knows about it. I know he did an interview with Ariel Helwani today. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but apparently he gets into it about the fears and everything that goes along with a traumatic, brutal
compound fracture.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm watching it through my camera. I heard it. I'll never forget the sound. Loudest popping. Sounded like an old cap gun, but going off with about 10 million decibels throughout the arena. So that was that was the first time I've dealt with an injury exactly like that, and I hope I don't really have to ever again. I started to honestly get kind of sick to myself. Had to get up and take a walk, which considering what I've seen and what I've been around in this sport for 25 years, kind of caught me off guard, but at the same time made me realize that I'm not completely desensitized to what I'm watching. So it was
Well,
kind of.
I mean, it's funny you're saying that, because if you look at guys like especially Rogan, who's probably sat for all three of the ones that have happened in the UFC.
Mhm.
They just posted the reaction over the weekend over when that happened, or someone put it up. They had the thrill and agony thing that they put up after the event, and even Daniel Cormier. I mean, you were there, so you didn't hear him say it, but Daniel Cormier was really vocal about not being able to look at it being so close. He didn't want to look. He was asking Joe Rogan to tell him what happened because he didn't want to look, and that's double champion, and he's been around stuff.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's definitely. I don't think you could ever be that desensitized. You got to be a maniac to be desensitized completely and not have any sort of empathy or feel bad for him, Silva, and I'm sorry, I forget the other gentleman's name that
Corey
passed
Hill.
away.
Yeah,
Corey Hill. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it's devastating, and I didn't know that about Cormier, so that's interesting because that's kind of how I felt. I mean, I'm literally taking photographs, watching the fight, and I mean it's 17 seconds into the fight, and I catch the kick with my photograph. I got a pretty shot of. I mean, it's not a gross picture, but I have the contact of the leg, and then and I instantly saw the compound fracture just because I was kind of zoomed in on my camera, and I instantly saw like something irregular out of the back of his leg. So instantly I'm just looking at the ground trying to keep my composure because at that point I didn't want to watch the replays. I had seen it already. It hasn't happened. But once they start showing the replays dozen times in the arena, you start hearing the crowd groaning and moaning, and it got real interesting. Now I wasn't the only one. There was obviously.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, there was more than me.
Listen,
Just me who
I
had to
was
go up and
alone
take a
here in
walk.
my apartment, and I literally, I probably stood up and walked around for at least 20 minutes, yelling and cursing, and just never mind the injury itself, but just the like Dr. Brian Suterer, who analyzed the injury really well on his YouTube channel. He called it the strangest twist of fate ever, because obviously everybody knows that two of the three, both Weidman and Anderson Silva, are connected because Weidman was happened to Anderson Silva versus Weidman. So for Weidman to receive the same injury, it's an insane
astronomical stats it's happened 3 times in the history of the UFC over 5,000 6,000 fights we're approaching now, and the fact that Weidman was involved on both ends of one happening is crazy. The good news is it looks like he had a good surgery. Looks like he's in decent spirits and he's recovering. So all wishes and all the best towards Weidman and his family. A guy, obviously, I'm a huge fan of his, and it hurt to see this. Seeing him get knocked out is one thing. Seeing this and being concerned about a guy losing his leg or something like that is a whole nother thought process that I personally wasn't necessarily used to until I saw this. So, but that was the, that was kind of the theme of the whole night. Not broken bones, but just violence. I mean, it's turned out to be one of the most just wild, violent events that I've ever seen. I'm probably on par with about UFC 189, another event that just had a ton of
top to bottom,
just knockouts nonstop. I mean, this event started off with 2 great prelim fights, just nonstop action, and really it never stopped from that point on. With the obviously it kind of concluding right before the main event with Randy Brown picked up a dominating win over Alex Oliveira, one-armed rear naked backpack choke, kind of probably the easiest way to describe it. He was on his back standing and was able to lock in a one-arm rear naked choke. So I don't think that's happened too many times in the history of the UFC. I know some of the announcers were trying to figure out, or at least people on Twitter were trying to remember if they'd seen it before. I feel like I have, but to try to pinpoint it,
you'd have to go back before,
and it might not have ever been pointed out when it
double-digit UFC days.
Exactly. So that finished up the prelims, and then the main card kicked off, and that's when we started getting these weird injuries. Jimmy Crute and Anthony Smith had a hell of a back and forth first round. Unfortunately for Crute, at some point I guess he was kicked by Smith.
Leg kick.
Yeah, and he had the Michael Chandler Brent Primus situation. I mean, I was at that fight too, so it was like a total,
Yeah, you're at the whole event. We know that.
Well, yeah, but the New York one, to see that it was a replay of that. It was the exact
I see
same
what
thing.
you mean. Yeah.
I was at when Chandler leg went limp, and it was the exact. It was basically the exact same thing, but also a squeamish moment when you see a guy's leg going limp, and
you know what's funny about that injury is that it bent outward a little bit, which at the post-fight press conference, even Dana White was like, "I think that's more than nerve damage." Thankfully, Krupp, a couple days later, put on his own social media that it was just nerve damage and he's fine. But I mean, to your point, I mean, you were in the audience. I don't know. I mean, I know they show on screen in the arena what folks are seeing at home, but it's kind of hard when you're there as a fan to pay attention to everything. So here, home, watching the replay over and over again. I mean, and I watched it again the next day to do the Sunday submission I do for MMA News. It was his leg. It bent outward a little bit, but I mean, one thing after that, even with that happening, I'm a fan of Jimmy Krupp because he still got a takedown, and he wanted to keep fighting, and got mad that they stopped the fight, even though as they stop it, as he's protesting, he fell down because he couldn't stand. So it's these guys are all made of something else. That's why I always get mad when folks try to trash him. But
yeah, I mean,
guys and gals.
He admits that his plan going into the second round was going to be to pull guard. You don't pull guard against Anthony Smith. You pulled a guard against Anthony Smith, you might be eating elbows for the next 5 minutes. I mean, the fact that was even a thought process just shows, like you said, they're built differently. So I mean, it was a win for Anthony Smith, but I don't think it did a lot to damage Crude. If anything, he gained fans. I mean, he gained me as far as
definitely
somebody who will be rooting for him going forward now, and seeing when you have the guts like that. So that, and then the Weidman injury. So we had 2 injuries to kind of start the main card.
Leg stuff,
which that was the end of the leg stuff, other than a kick that was heard around the world down the line. But the first title fight of the night, Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade. I mean, I knew Shevchenko was good. This is the first time I've ever been able to watch her fight in person. Because I was at the Nunes fight that got canceled right before the event. She's as good as any mixed martial artist we've ever seen.
So do you think it warrants because everybody knows the result, obviously we're 2 weeks after, but do you think it warrants before this, I would say folks weren't on board with a Nunes Shevchenko 3, catch weight or whatever you want to have, but after that, after UFC 261, I don't mind seeing that fight.
As a fight fan, I would love to see the fight. I'm just not sure what it does. I'm more worried that if Shevchenko loses that fight, then what's her situation? Does she lose credibility, and does she always get said, well, excuse me, well, you're fighting in a weak weight class. Obviously, you can't win at 135. That would be my only concern, because if she goes 0-3 against Nunes, she had never. I feel like she's kind of boxing herself into more criticism than she should deserve. Obviously the next fight, Rose Namajunas shocked the world, head kick knockout of Weili Zhang. I'm kind of in the neighborhood of why not maybe Rose versus Shevchenko, and again, like, we're jumping 10 pounds either direction. That fight does interest me slightly, seeing how Rose has gotten so good on her feet. You potentially that could be something that could be fun to watch. Also, Rose.
I don't disagree, but I also think that I just feel like the straw weight is always, I guess, because of the low number. I don't know why in my own mind. Again, this is just my opinion, but I feel like the straw weight. I mean, there's a thin line, but I don't know. With the history, I mean, people talk about how great Amanda Nunes is. Rose, she just got the title. It looks like they might do her and Zhang again, which is fine if they do that. I mean, because there's only so many people at 115, but I don't know. I just feel like that might be too big of an advantage if Rose goes up, and we've seen when fighters go too light. In the case of TJ Dillashaw when he went after the flyweight title, you know what I mean? So I would hate to see Shevchenko already diminished because she's already, kind of.
Yeah, I think it would have to take place at 125, and I don't think Rose wins the fight. but I also don't necessarily think Shevchenko beats Nunes. So like part of me just I going 0-3 against somebody would you at that point I feel like the fans are going to go, well, you dominate because you have nobody in 125.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the UFC's job to try to find people. I don't know. Maybe we start talking trades here. Bellator's got a few good 125ers, and I don't know if I don't think any of them beat Shevchenko.
Well,
but
they just went public, so who knows what the future holds for the UFC?
I mean, I don't know what one's roster looks like and stuff. We already had it. Bellator already made, or UFC already made a trade with one time, so maybe there's some women over there that another trade possibility or something. I don't know, but I would at this point, we've had so many crossover fights. I have no issues with just kind of them staying in their weight classes and doing some stuff. Rose has great fights still, a rematch with Whaley. Joanna's still a good fight for her. A lot of people thought the second fight was a lot closer. Shevchenko, I don't know who she fights at 125. I know Lauren Murphy and Joanna Calderwood are fighting at 263, and that seems to kind of be the consensus number one contender bout. But I don't think either of those women, honestly, I mean, they might last a round or two because they're tough as hell. But I don't.
Yeah.
I
but
just
we all
don't.
know greatness fades. I mean, it's been some time. I that's the only reason why I think with time, fighters can get better, but then they can also get either complacent or things start catching up with him. Like we know, I mean, Nunes is a parent now. Shevchenko has kind of seemed to have cleaned up any holes in her game. Because everybody thought, talking about the fight, everyone thought, I mean, including Andrade, that she thought she had the advantage in strength and grappling. And Shevchenko completely went up, made it a point to engage her and dominate her there. So, which maybe 5 years ago that would have been the case, but obviously not now.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. I mean, I think Shevchenko does pose a threat, and Nunes might get complacent. She is bouncing around between two weight classes already. It looks like she's going to fight Pena coming up here. So we can kind of see maybe where she's at now that she's had a kid, around the house and stuff. I mean, everything, like you say, changes. I wonder what would happen to the women's 125 weight class if Shevchenko went up and won the belt at 135. Do we end up with kind of a situation, does that become like a lame dunk weight class? Obviously we would end up seeing Shevchenko Nunes 4 and potentially 5 if we're doing a best of series at that point.
No, usually, I mean, I don't know. They could. That's why I asked the question, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are watching this or hear this later on that say, that we've been there, done that, and it's time for new stuff. But it seems like, especially for, I mean, if you look at a weight class or their weight classes from the women from 115 all the way up to featherweight, it looks like there seems to be this little round robin of the same people over and over again, and they don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? Like, so
that's definitely a problem. I just think Shevchenko right now is on the brink of like superstardom, and I would be concerned if I was her handler or manager or coach about a Nunes loss, because she doesn't need that right now. She could fight bums at 125 and keep doing what she's doing, and eventually she's going to become the face of the UFC. I mean, that she's that good. I technically, I mean, she's as good as anybody I've ever seen. Technically, obviously, she's not as strong as some of the guys, but as far as just all aspects of the game, I mean, her ground control, her striking, everything is just so on point right now that it's getting better. That's the thing. Like I feel like every fight is like a different show. So I don't know. Better. I might do the Nunes thing in like a year from now, but I might milk Shevchenko, kind of mop up a couple more girls at 125 and really set it off where you're talking. This is an ESPN headlined event with, getting major news down the line. So that was the big win for Shevchenko. As I mentioned, Rose Namajunas picked up a head kick knockout over Weili Zhang, minute 18 into the first round. You want to talk about a loud noise in the arena and the old school pop that that used to get, fans are used to, that go to these events. That was as loud and crazy as I've been, and especially obviously recent memory, but just Rose is obviously loved by a lot of fans. the majority of fans don't listen to every single quote that comes out and stuff like that. They just watch people fight and see their pre and
No,
post
I
fight.
mean, if that were the case, I mean, then Jorge Masvidal would have gotten booed when he walked in there. You know what I mean? But
Good exact point.
nobody cares about any of that shit that certain people try to bring to the media,
Try
light
to
of the
push
media.
and bring it.
The
Exactly.
last article I wrote before that event, I was about her and how she just talked about the fight, and I pulled it from something TMZ where they addressed the whole Wei Lee stuff. I mean, enough. At the end of the day, we just want to see them fight. Most people just want to see them fight. I mean, if they go overboard and they start doing stuff that where law has to get involved, child trafficking or something, then okay. But that's not the case here. And I mean, shit. I mean, how highbrow do you want to get for half naked people fighting in a cage?
I had to tell that to multiple people, and we've talked about this on the show before. Because somebody asked me about the situation with the YouTubers boxing and stuff, and if I think that ruins the sport. And I'm like, to me, all these sports are entertainment anyway. I got into this watching sumo wrestlers, bare knuckle fighting other dudes. And that's I've used that exact quote you just said. I go on a podcast, talk about two dudes basically their underwear trying to knock each other out. The day I take this seriously is the day I'm going to stop talking about it.
Yeah.
It's
like,
what I do
out.
to not take serious. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not serious. The only serious thing that I want is guys not to get seriously injured, and I want to make sure that they're paid what they deserve to be paid to do it. That's the only serious aspect of MMA or boxing that I ever look at. As far as rankings and all that crap, I threw that out the door, a decade ago. So that was it. You mentioned Masvidal. Obviously, Usman finished him with a highlight reel knockout for the ages. Masvidal, though, like as you said, got a huge. I mean, he has a following there that
Florida, that's his home.
Wild.
Yeah,
I mean, it is his home. Much like the Diaz situation up north here in California, and the Liddell Ortiz kind of thing here in Southern California. When you back in the day seeing them perform. So Masvidal or Usman continues to get better. I said it during our prediction. I kind of felt like he was going to try to prove a point in this fight. And whether he intended to or not, he sure as hell did. That knockout will be on highlight reels and probably added to the Who montage that they play before live UFC events. Probably already is. I mean, the way that
there's some great photos out there. I mean, I know you being there live, you probably didn't see all the the details as far as like the sweat leaving and. You know what I mean? Like there's a real, I'm sure you've seen the image by now. There's still image of all the droplets of sweat that left Masvidal's head as Usman just, I mean, they're not even punches. It's almost like he's just makes a fist and launches himself behind it.
It reminded me of when I was at ringside for the Fedor Brett Rogers punch. Very, very super similar. Where it's like the guy just punched through the guy. He wasn't trying to hit him. He was trying to stick his fist through the backside of his head.
And one of the things they said during the commentary, which you probably missed, was that they're being critical of Usman putting too much behind his punches because they noticed that all the punches were putting him off balance. And if you look at that finishing shot, he followed through and like kind of threw himself forward. But hey, I mean, if you just mentioned Fedor, the similarity, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man.
Same thing. Fedor almost fell fat. I mean, he had to catch himself from falling after he hit Rogers, just because the momentum of the punch. I mean, it's as hard as you can punch somebody. Is basically all I can compare it to. And that was for 170 pounder. I've never seen anybody. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We've seen Daly do his thing to people, but for a UFC main event against a guy who is known for having a pretty damn solid chin in Masvidal, Usman's knockout is something that, I mean, I've had the opportunity. I watched his last three fights in person. I wasn't really a fan much going into the Covington fight, but he's good.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
we said that when he beat Burns. Remember we were talking about who's left for him now. I mean, they made this fight. It's a money fight, sure. So that's why it happened. Fan friendly. Obviously it's what you want to draw folks into an arena. Your first fight back, gave everybody, and it delivered from top to bottom, as we just said. But who's left for him at welterweight that he hasn't fought? Wonder Boy, and I forgot who the other guy is that's worth that should be at least get a shot.
Man.
But I mean, he's done interviews past where he's just he's looping everybody at welterweight now. You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
like
mean, eventually maybe Leon Edwards, if Edwards is able to beat Nate
or
Diaz,
get a fight.
get a fight. Well, it looks like it got moved to 263. So
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying because the guy keeps trying to get fights
and stuff keeps happening. So
Yeah.
there is him and Wonder Boy. I after seeing what Usman how he handled Burns and how he handled and Masvidal, I don't think it's out of line to think Colby Covington deserves a rematch. That fight, up until the point where he was finished in the 5th round of that fight, was basically a 2-round fight going into that round. So I think stylistically he might be the only one who can. The Wonder Boy thing is always fascinating because Wonder Boy is such a stylistic matchup nightmare for everybody. But I feel like Covington is kind of a mirror image of Usman in a sense. Maybe Usman is obviously by winning the last match a couple clicks higher on the ranking, but I feel like stylistically he has a chance to neutralize each other and make it a real close fight. So that was the UFC card. Again, crowd was great. Didn't see any issues. Everybody in the arena pretty much got along. Everybody seemed super happy to be back. And I know a lot of the people in Jacksonville who live in that area who hadn't really had a chance to ever go to a big UFC event were grateful that the UFC put one on in their backyard. So.
Yeah. Plus bringing in business, guys like yourself. I mean, you always like to bring a whole tribe with you when you go to these things. So, I mean, that's bringing in business to an area that gets to hold these events. Hopefully it helps out the economy. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because I know I saw yesterday in the news for here out in the Northeast, Sheldon Silver, the guy that kept MMA out of New York, got released on furlough from prison. And one of the things that were cited in the Associated Press, the AP News report was, the economic impact that having events here versus not having, especially for fighters like Chris Weidman, guys from New York, like Uriah Hall, that, they obviously had to leave to pursue their profession and their dream and stuff because of this man. And, so that's a perfect example of, I mean, we know a lot of folks from your neck of the woods, West Coast, that came all the way to Florida to go to that event. So this is just one of the things that, about people talk about. Do you really need to see something that bad because of everything going on? But I mean, at the end of the day, overall, there is a trickle down theory. I mean, it helped. How many small businesses did you shop at? I know you're complaining about not being able to get food.
Well, certain things weren't open, and their hours are weird. But yeah, exactly. Yeah. I ate at different restaurants every night I was there, and went to the bar before the fights, and bought merchandise and bought stuff at the arena, and so yeah, everything was great. It would obviously, again, I don't, not to knock what was going on there, but it's not as clean of or not as smooth running situation as like an event in New York or Vegas as far as the arena.
They got to get used to it.
Well, I don't think arena like that's used to having that many people in it. There's no professional team that's in that arena. So I don't know how many times they get 16,000 people in there for arena football.
But I mean, they're definitely going to be going back. I mean, I know that's the day you were traveling in there. Right, you got there for the Friday before, right?
Friday night before.
So the Thursday is when they had the press conference, and he had the mayor of Jacksonville and the governor of the state was at the press conference, and Dana White made it a point because of the beginning of the pandemic and letting them have something there. Dana White was like, not only he actually said, well, if I have to come here every other weekend, I will, depending on how things go. But he was like, his thank you to that state was like, I'll go all over up and down Florida if I have to, as long as I'm allowed to. And if the money that it brings in, obviously helps out the state. So, I mean, I don't know if you bought I know you're a frequent flyer, so you might want to add Florida to your rotation.
Yeah, I got a taste of Florida. I mean, I won't be blitzing back there anytime super quick. But again, it was awesome to be back. So while I waited for the rest of the week to go by, as I eventually headed to Birmingham for BKFC, we had a couple televised events. Wednesday night, not to break down too deep into the card, but Wednesday night one had another show. Eddie Alvarez fought again.
That was the final one, right?
This is the final one of this block of the shows.
Yeah.
Eddie Alvarez fought again after 3 weeks, suffered a loss this time. Crazy fight, almost got finished in the first round by Ray Unok. And then fought back, really probably won the second 2 rounds, but fights aren't judged that way in
overall, not round by round.
As a whole. It's pride scoring. So as a result to the damage he took early, Eddie Alvarez suffered a loss. Shinya Aoki does his thing, picked up another submission win in a rematch and a revenge win for him over Edward Foilang. And in the main event, Ongla Sang, who was at one time the middleweight and light heavyweight champion, has now had his belt taken in both divisions by the same fighter, Renier de Ritter.
That's a guy that needs to blow up. Yeah.
I didn't know a whole lot about him. I don't want to make you sound like a casual. Wasn't super familiar with him after watching him and his jiu-jitsu and his kind of fight IQ and doing what it takes to win a fight. I think that guy could become a force, especially at 185.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm
Israel Adesanya, it's a good thing one has money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if I'm Israel Adesanya, I don't want no part of that guy coming over to the 185 pound division.
If thank God they have the money to draw folks away from the UFC, because if he, you know what I mean, like if they throw him a contract that seems nice to him, like Ben Askren, you talk about trades, Ben Askren and the Mighty Mouse thing, that was like a trade that Ben Askren kind of did because he wanted to check the UFC off of his bucket list, and it didn't work out so well for him. But I mean, something like that, like they would have to, if the guy's a champ, double champ, picked up a lot, like folks, like you said, you didn't know who he was. Now a lot of folks know who he is after that. It's going to cost some money to lure him away from one. However, overall, I just want to add before we move off of one, because we only got a few minutes left here. I think if one wants to get fans on board, I mean, you let me know if you agree with this or not, but because you and I did the Twitter space during the prelims of that final card, and I think if one really wants to get fans from here on board with them, they need to keep doing this one-off thing that they did, or quarterly of people forget easy. So if you expect fans to understand the difference between you, it seems like almost every little press event that Chatri does, and when he's on air at the events, it's almost like he's trying to teach us how they operate there. But I mean, you learn by showing it to us, dude. And if you keep on doing this rarely, then it's going to be rarely known.
So yeah, because their next 2 events are back to their normal early morning. It does look like the next one's on a Saturday morning, which for me is a huge plus. Even though it would start 5:30 a.m. my time, Saturday morning is a possible view for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought they did well. I enjoyed watching their shows. And like I said, I being exposed to some of these guys.
Yeah.
And I'm sleeping on.
I'm not saying it to be critical, because I mean, again, they did outreach. They sent stuff. They send stuff to folks. But like that's a face mask and some shirts and stuff that they sent to me. But so I'm saying it to if Ty or all those guys out there that I communicated with from one, if you watch this and you're listening, which I think some of you do, that's just you want my 2 cents? There it is. So
yeah, no, I think that I think the ratings were good enough that I would be surprised.
For 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, not bad. Yeah,
that's what I mean. A couple 100,000 views at, like you said, that time on a Wednesday.
Following AEW, which is on right now as we're recording, actually.
Yep. So that was Wednesday night. Thursday night, PFL returned for their second event.
Yeah, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 passed really quick. Just PFL 1 had a lot of upsets. But the whole point of the PFL is like it's anybody's fight to win every season. And the fact that Lance Palmer lost in that first event, and I forget who else was the favorite that lost on that event, but
Collard
beat Pettis, and Lance Palmer lost to Bubba Jenks. The only finish on that first card was Brandon Laughlin, I think, from that division anyway. And if you watch their post-fight press conference, they already predicted that it's going to be them 2 in the finals. So it's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, we talk about the betting odds every once in a while on here and joke about kind of the small bets that you might make. Did you see that if you would have had Collard, Martine Held, and and Biggie Rhodes.
Hmm.
If you would have had those three guys, $100 bet would have paid $8,000 on the parlay.
I actually had held picked, but to win by submission specifically, not by suddenly learning how to strike really well.
Well, but that's one of those events where
Yeah.
the rarity where you had three super mega upsets on a main card where I'm sure somebody out there cashed in probably nicely. So that was it. That was the first event. This past event was this past Thursday, headlined by Rory McDonald. Making his return. Last minute, he was supposed to fight Mishad. He had to retire due to some health issues, so best to him. But Curtis Millender, the UFC, Bellator, LFA, all-around veteran, stepped in. Rory McDonald looked like the old Rory McDonald, took him down, dominated, got back control.
Yeah, him and Ray Cooper, was first-round subs, as expected. This week is the lightweights and the heavyweight, women's lightweights and heavyweights. Listen, if you guys aren't following all these other promotions, I say it on the other thing I do, but like you're really missing out because there are like Ray Cooper. Nobody knew who Ray Cooper III was until he started winning in the PFL. Eventually got the title in 2019, and now he's literally like already on his way. Picked up 6 points to advance, just like Rory McDonald. He wanted to fight. When I spoke to him at the post-fight presser at the end of their last season before COVID, he specifically said, "I want to fight Rory McDonald," because for him it's a challenge because he's getting to fight these guys coming from other promotions where to really test himself. But the PFL, I really love their format, and they seem to be pulling out all the stops this season. If you watch and you're on your social during the event, James Lynch, who's been on this podcast, does something like these Twitter in between, so he interviews fighters and stuff like that are there at the Ocean Resort here in Atlantic City, in New Jersey, and it's just they're really I can't be more pleased with what they're doing. But with the remaining time, we should probably look at what's coming up with Bellator 258, because this card is like, I'm going to add it to the screen right now. This card is literally, we talked about UFC 261 being great from beginning to end. This card on paper could deliver that way.
Yeah, card's loaded. I love what Bellator's doing right now since the move to Showtime.
Yeah,
we really have like,
yeah.
I mean, they're stacked. The cards are stacked.
This is the first fight, just so folks can see. Eric Goyito Perez, who came from, he fought in the UFC, right? I know. Yeah. So it's like, look, this is your first fight. I mean, of course, okay, they're Blaine Shutt. He's fighting an 8-4 guy, but like, not for nothing, logistically, it's still hard to make fights. I mean, if you looked at my interviews with Aaron Jeffrey, heard them on the audio version of this podcast, I spoke to him before and after. It ain't easy, which, by the way, he's signed for Contender Series in September. But it's hard to make fights. So I don't mind the mismatches right now. Until we get back to normal, I don't mind them. But this card is, I don't even know what else. Like, what jumps out at you? Like, I don't even know what else.
Well, yeah, like in the Perez fight, for example, like this is a late minute. Like, it was initially supposed to be Perez versus Brian Moore, who doesn't have a tremendous record
like I'm
either.
in a murder room with the sun going down.
So, I mean, I noticed Henry Corrales on the prelims. That's always an interesting thing. Logan Storley, who's obviously coming off the first loss of his career, but he's on the prelims. I mean, it would be hard for me not to notice. The one that jumps out at me the most is Lorenz Larkin versus Rafael Carvalho. Larkin will move back high into the top 2-3 in the rankings with a victory here after having like a year off, and Carvalho has had a tough go of late, but he is the former champion, and obviously this could turn out to be a heck of a stand-up.
And fans of wrestling and MMA will just love watching Logan Storley do his thing if he gets to impose his wrestling. This one right here is the one you're talking about.
I mean, that one stands out for me just because it's two big names. It's two.
Carvalho held the title at one point, right?
Carvalho was a champ. Yeah, he lost to Musasi at Bellator 200 in London.
So there you go.
And like I said, Larkin was he had come off the win over Koreshkov. he's moving up after having a couple tough early fights in his Bellator run against Daly and Lima. He's been on a nice little run lately. Like I said, I think with a win here, he's probably becomes almost the number one contender. It's kind of the 170 is a loaded weight class, so he's going to be in the top 2-3 rankings. I would imagine with a win here, especially if it's a spectacular one that catches the eyes of people who haven't seen him fight again for the last almost year and a half. Main card,
right here, just really quick. If you're a fan of, I mean, especially Rafael Stotts and Josh Hill, that's a great bantamweight fight. I've been following. I know Stotts fought at VFC a lot. I forgot. I know I interviewed somebody. He fought for a title over there or main evented over there years ago. But this is right here. This is a fun fight and these are all on YouTube. So if you don't have Showtime, you can watch these on YouTube. You'll probably still be working, Matt, by the time these kick off.
Yeah, the way some of these prelims are going, I might have to figure out a way to avoid working a little bit in the afternoon there. But yeah, loaded. The main card.
Oh yeah, let's go to the beginning before.
I mean, just this is with. So, I mean, it shows opening fight is MVP Michael Venom Page against Derek Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
This fight has fireworks written all over it. Mm-hmm. It's a fight that was originally scheduled already once. And then Aaron Anderson suffered an injury that had to lead to the eventual cancellation. I think Derek Anderson has all the tools to beat Venom Page if he uses his mixed martial arts ability and just doesn't do what everybody else tends to do,
which is try to match him in his wheelhouse.
Fall asleep in front of him, and then all of a sudden you get caught with something you didn't see.
Yeah.
So, but I think Anderson can use his grind it out. And he's tough. I mean, other than a guy like Fernando Gonzalez, who's also tough son of a bitch. I don't know if Page has fought anybody. Yeah, I mean, Daly. Don't get me wrong; he's fought somebody. He lost to Lima, but as far as guys that could step up and in a sense pull off the upset, this might be his toughest bout that he's had in Bellator, other than the championship fight with Lima. So interesting. Pitbull versus Quealy, Patricky Pitbull. That fight was also supposed to headline an event that was canceled over the COVID
Europe,
time.
Yeah.
That was part of the European tour. And Patricky Pitbull's never in a boring fight.
No. And he won a couple. He went over to Ryzen and fought there. So I always feel like, I mean, I know we meant to mention it but we're coming short on time. But you talk about the talent that comes out of Ryzen or what can happen to help you evolve in Ryzen. Look at Yuri Prachaska who finished Dominic Reyes last weekend. So that's just some of what Pitbull could Japanese MMA. Could be empowering people to come and do something we haven't seen before against this fight.
Yeah, and you mentioned that real quick. We're not going to go down the UFC card from last weekend, but if you did not get a chance I landed just in time, got back in town to watch the main event. If you didn't get a chance to watch Dominic Reyes versus Yuri Prachaska, figure out a way to watch it. The knockout is one of the most spectacular finishes in UFC in MMA history.
Really is.
So definitely look that one up. Getting back to this card, so this is the sad part about the card, really. In a sense that we were supposed to have Anthony Johnson versus.
Where were you when this news broke in your travels? How did you find out about it? Before we
one of my Yuri Thompson, who's been on the show, texted me that he couldn't believe that Romero was out. And then I went to social media and saw it. I think I was sitting in a hotel. I want to feel like I was pretty much watching PFL, or it might've been that Thursday night.
I forget when I found out myself, but I mean, I know when I saw it, when the news broke, I had shared whoever shared it, probably Nolan, cause he's, been at all of these, but I mean, Jose Augusto, he submitted a guy at Bellator 255. So
yeah, I don't know a whole lot about him.
He's part of team. He's actually part of Team Pitbull.
Pitbull, I do know that. So that's good in his pocket. He's obviously got balls of steel if he's willing to take Anthony Johnson on.
But here's the thing about that. This is Anthony Johnson who hasn't fought in 4 years.
I know, but he's still.
Of course, he still has that power, and he's a giant person of a man. I spoke to him when he was doing the stuff for BKFC when I went to the Lobov Malinaji thing out here in the city. So that interview is actually on the YouTube channel if you folks want to go back and watch it. But I mean, I'm 5'11" and I was, like this.
Yeah, no, the guy's a friggin' beast. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be you're just gonna see how hungry he is. If he comes in ripped like it looks like he's ripped, and his goal is to be the Bellator champion, then it could be a long short night for Jose Augusto. But the way MMA works, Augusto will probably tackle him, take him down, and submit him, and we'll never get to see.
Well, I mean, that's proven to be the way to beat him. I mean, Daniel Cormier did it twice, so yeah. I mean, I don't know what he's been doing to get better. I know he trains at Sanford. There's a lot of good jiu-jitsu at Sanford. Shout out to Gilbert Burns and I know Wagner Hosha helps those guys out and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to go with Johnson in that fight, but we'll see. I'm more excited just to see his return and what kind of what Anthony Rumble we're in for.
Yeah.
Main event world title fight, 135-pound. Juan Archuleta defends his belt against Sergio Pettis. Great fight. I think Archuleta wins though. I think Pettis is more of a 125er. And I think Archuleta is someone who can float between 35 and 45. I think he might be a little bit too big and strong. I'm not real barring a a Rose Namajunas kind of head kick or something like that, just kind of comes out of nowhere, and Archuleta totally misreads it. I don't see how Pettis really wins this fight. I think Archuleta grinds it out, probably wins a decision. He seems to be one of those fighters that is not afraid just to do what's always necessary to win. So I think it might not be one of his spectacular knockouts that we've seen against lesser competition. I think he probably grinds out a 4 rounds to 1, 5 rounds to nothing decision over Sergio Pettis is my bet on the fight.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not. How do I say this without sounding like a dick? Oh, I'm just going to agree with you.
Let me sound like a dick. Yeah,
I agree. I agree that I mean, Pettis just never really grabbed me as I mean, even like if you look at his brother's fight at PFL, I mean, he was. I just don't see the. I know the folks over at Front Proof are going to laugh at me for using this because they hate the term in boxing, but the ring generalship, I don't see that. Whatever that means to me, it means like awareness of yourself and what your options and tactics and planning. I see that in Anthony, but I don't see that in Sergio, and I've never seen it in him. Even in that fight that he had like his brother's fight in the PFL, his debut there, he had his moments. But for Sergio, well, I know he did well with the first fight he had, right? I forget.
Yeah, I mean he's won a couple fights now.
But I'm just, it's not something that makes me.
Yeah, no, I think
Archuleta's
been
going
spectacular. Archuleta, whereas Archuleta has shown that ring generalship that you mentioned in his fights. I mean, obviously he lost to Pitbull, but it was not.
But
he was just outgunned by one of the greatest of all time. So So that's a hell of an event. That's this Friday night.
TGIF.
We are starting to run a little late here. I can't.
Bars open in New Jersey.
I can't go though without at least giving a shout out to BKFC for BKFC 17. I mean, a wild night, 10 fights, 10 stoppages, just pure violence. Shout out to Bobo O'Bannon and Zach Kalmus, who put on one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. Zach Kalmus took a beating and is suffering from some situation now where he might lose some teeth and has to have some oral surgery. I got a chance to actually go shake his hand after the fight. I've never seen a fighter so beat up. And yet at the same time, I straight up went up, shook the guy's hand, told him I've traveled the country going to fights, been to thousands of fly fights, and I have never seen anybody as tough as he is. Not knowing the guy's personality or not, he actually started to get almost emotional about it, said that this is what he lives for, and that hearing a fan, somebody who pays to watch it fight, say that to him meant the world to him.
Yeah.
So all props to Zach Kalmus. Again, one of the toughest people I've ever seen compete, and he is, and I think he will become a can't miss BKFC fighter. But overall, top to bottom, card was great, super entertaining. I enjoy what BKFC does. I enjoy if you're a fan of it and you're able to get access to go to the weigh-ins. I mean, you literally have access to everybody. I got to chat with Chris Lytle, who's been on our show for about 30 minutes. Sean Wheelock, the ring announcer. Anybody you wanted to, fighters. I got to, Mike Richmond, Marcel Stamps, Josh Burns, got quick little chats with those guys. Just really, really doing good stuff. Told Feldman that the president, that I was really enjoying his product, and I hope that he would keep up with what he's doing, and it seems like that's going to be the case. They are having some issues with Florida events, more due to the arenas and certain arenas not being as open to full capacity. So it looks like the next event is now pushed off till June 18th, a mega event in Florida. With all their
signings, I mean, it just gives them time to make better cards. I mean, they picked up, while you were going over there, the news, they picked up Ostovich, Pro Gonzalez is there. So like they're building up their women's division. So lots of good stuff potentially that we could see from them. So it just gives them more time. Holding events cost money too. So hopefully them having to wait lets them filter that money into promotion and things like that to have it pay in returns when folks can get back into normal and stuff like that.
And the fans there seem to really enjoy the product. I mean, it wasn't a full house. I mean, we're probably looking at like 3,000 people, but it was a great atmosphere. Like I said, people dancing in the crowd, just a lot of fun. People were happy to be back and seeing stuff. And again, BKFC is not for everybody, but it's fun. If blood and cuts don't bother you, then I don't know if there's a better, more entertaining event to go watch, to be honest. And I told that to people that were looking to that asked me, that were some investors that were asking, just wanted to know a fan's opinion, and I told them the same thing. That I think if they continue on the path they're on, I think that there's potential for huge growth, and if they keep signing name fighters, not just the hot girls, although that's going to bring in eyes, and that's not just
whatever they're doing. It seems to be working because
it seems to be working. They're growing. They're up to they have 18 events now, and it looks great. So, fun time all around. Happy to be back. Fans can always check us out at Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram, at Combat Hour on Twitter. Follow me at Matthew Hawkins at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carb Beerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. And again, you can always check out our video podcast and other MMA news at allaccessmma.com. Ed, fun week. Look forward to Bellator. Also got a UFC Michelle Watterson versus Rodriguez card this Saturday for UFC. Lots of action nonstop, and look forward to maybe getting a hold of a guest or two that I spoke to out at the BKFC.
Oh yeah, no, they're coming. As guests are coming, working on a few myself. But all right, everyone, have a good week. Happy Mother's Day to the mothers out there. Anyone that listens to the audio, and take care.
Happy Cinco de Mayo. Happy Mother's Day. Everybody be safe.